Well, a very good afternoon and many thanks for staying with us right here on NTV Uganda. My name is Romeo Busiku and I'm here yet again with another pertinent conversation. We want to talk about the International Rural Women's Day. It is observed every 15th of October. Yes, every year. But then this year we are going to be talking about the International Rural Women's Day a little bit earlier. That is on the 13th, so that you can anticipate what is going to be actually observed on the 15th, that is Friday this very week. This day was first commemorated on the 15th of October, that is in 2008. That is 13 years ago, to highlight the critical role that rural women play in actually enhancing food production and also ensuring food security within our country. It is not a secret that when it comes to agriculture, especially in Africa, women, yes, are largely engaged within agriculture. In Uganda here, 76% of the women, especially rural women, are engaged in agriculture, whereas it's only 62% for the men, especially here in Uganda. So we are here to highlight that critical role, yes, that the women play in advancing food security and also food production right here in Uganda. What are some of those challenges that are befalling these women, especially climate change and also COVID-19? What better way to talk about the issues affecting women than actually have a conversation with the women themselves? I do have Angela Nakafero. She is the Commissioner, Gender and Women's Affairs in the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development. We also do have Angela Akoth. She is a lawyer and she's also the project coordinator for the Gender-Based Violence Shelters Project under the Action Aid International Uganda. Very good afternoon and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to start with you, Commissioner Angela Nakafero. This day, why are we even commemorating International Rural Women's Day? The viewer would like to know. But first off, give us a situational analysis of how climate change is battering especially the rural women. Based on the theme for this year, as we highlight International Rural Women's Day, it's going to be building resilience amidst climate change. You understand? Food security amidst climate change, building resilience for the rural women. So give us a situational analysis of how the rural women are grappling under the effects of climate change.
Thank you very much, moderator.
Yes.
As introduced, my name is Angela Nakafero. I serve as the Commissioner, Gender and Women Affairs, Minister of Gender, Labour, Social Development. The discussion today about climate change and rural women is very, very pertinent, given the fact that majority of women in the rural areas largely or predominantly depend on the ecosystem for them to be able to survive in terms of food production, in terms of the basic needs and requirements, for instance, water, in terms of firewood, energy within the home is very, very critical, in terms of the income generation. Majority of them.
Water, I hear you loud and clear. 80% of the water we collect in Uganda here is actually collected by the women. Yes. That's how,
women and girls.
Yes, women and girls.
So when we talk about the ecosystem, it's very critical in terms of the livelihoods of women in the rural areas. Without rainfall, we cannot produce our food in Uganda. Because
our agriculture is largely dependent on rainfall.
Exactly. And of course, without food production, food security is at stake.
Indeed.
So our lives, even us who are in the urban areas, but especially those in the rural areas, are largely dependent on the ecosystem.
Indeed.
Exactly.
And that's why we are here.
Yes.
Go ahead and compound for us
the discussion
how it is that we actually levy all the resources that we have towards the rural women. We're talking about 76% of these women engaged in agriculture, but yet little funding is going to these women within the rural sector.
Even those who are not in the room in agriculture, you'll find that somehow they have small income generating activities that are being fed by the agriculture sector. Those in produce, those in terms of selling water or collecting water, of selling firewood. So you find that the ecosystem is very central to our lives. Alongside that discussion, ladies and gentlemen, we also need that within our roles and responsibilities, within our economic activities, we are going ahead to destroy the ecosystem.
I see.
The level of deforestation in Uganda is alarming.
Indeed.
We've destroyed almost all the natural resources. And yet we are not planting artificial forests at the same rate we are destroying the
Explain to the viewer how
nature.
dire that would be in the respect of agricultural production. The
Of
fact
course,
that we've cut down trees, no rain is coming in, and remember, we are depending on the same rain. So it's a recipe for disaster.
When we cut our trees, it means that rain is affected.
Indeed.
The movement of the winds.
Indeed.
Have you realized that of recent, the speed, the heaviness of the wind is increasing over time?
Because
you can
the
even feel
windbreakers were removed.
exactly.
I hear you. Go ahead.
The water system is also being disorganized. We are having a lot of sewage into Lake Victoria
Indeed.
and other lakes and rivers.
And of course, the trees are also protecting the water bodies from evaporating.
So honestly, we are in a very challenging
see.
circumstance.
I see.
And of course, don't be surprised when these communicable diseases are also going to escalate.
Indeed.
Because along the way they are being blown by the wind, they are being transferred into the ecosystem. The amount of carbon dioxide within the ecosystem is high compared to the amount of oxygen we need for survival. We've gone through COVID, oxygen was on demand.
Indeed.
So if we are not able to generate enough oxygen within our atmosphere, we are really heading for, not to say disaster,
Indeed.
but we are in a crisis.
Of course, on
ladies
October
and
15th,
gentlemen.
it's going to be a Friday, Angela, and that's where you're going to be commemorating the International Rural Women's Day in
Yes,
Kayunga,
please.
I believe. But then other jurisdictions alike are being battered by the effects of climate change. So why only choose one jurisdiction of Kayunga?
The selection of Kayunga, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, we at the Ministry of Gender, Labour, Social Development, we rotate
I see.
our international days. Last in 2019, we were in Soroti. So this time around, we are in Kayunga. But the reason for selecting Kayunga was basically because we have issues of flooding.
I see.
And we are basically going to be in Galilaya sub-county. That is an area near the river shores, and of course they've been affected by flooding, and we've been affected by deforestation.
I hear you.
The trees are down. They're also being affected by the unfriendly utilization of the swamps, of the wetlands. So there are so many issues at stake.
How have
that we
all
need to
those factors,
discuss.
Angela Nakafero, affected food production within Kayunga especially?
Food
What are some of
production.
the stories coming out?
Of course, all of us have witnessed that in the COVID context, food was one of the basic requirements. Once we destroy the ecosystem, food production is indirectly affected. When the floods come, we destroy all the food crops.
I see.
Okay. When the dry spells come, they also do the same. Okay. At times we may celebrate prematurely when we increase production of rice in the wetlands, but that is not sustainable. Yes, you're going to produce today, but you'll not be able to produce tomorrow because the wetland is going to be destroyed and will not take you for the next 5 years. So we may have some little gains today, but the future is undermined.
And that's why we are here to come up with mitigating measures that could go a long way in actually, mitigating the effects of climate change. Because when it rains, yes, it rains too much. And when actually it shines, it just burns everything within the field. So that's why we are here. Climate change is a big problem and it's rearing its very, very ugly head, not only for Africa and many other jurisdictions in the world are grappling alike. In Uganda here, like I did mention, most of the farming is being done by the women, 76%. The men are only engaged at 62%. So more help, more resources need to be accorded, especially to the rural women who are grappling the most during this COVID-19 pandemic amidst the climate change rearing its very ugly head. The theme for this year, as we commemorate International Rural Women's Day on October 15th, that is going to be Friday, it's food security amidst climate change and also building resilience for rural women. Please do note that. Let's also bring in Akoth Angela. She is a lawyer. She's working with Action Aid International Uganda. She is the project coordinator and she's working with the Gender-Based Violence Shelters Project. You'll be telling us a little more about this project and what you're doing in it. But first of all, why should my mother in Hoima right now take this conversation seriously?
Thank you very much, moderator. Your mother in Hoima or the women out there should take this conversation seriously because it's about recognizing the efforts.
I see.
Recognizing what they put into the agricultural production of this country. 80% of the food that we have in this country is actually produced by women. These women go through a lot in terms of tilling land, in terms of looking after these families, in terms of contributing to the production of their various families in this country. So it's very key and pertinent to recognize those efforts. And while we recognize those efforts, we also have to come up with measures of how to support them to ensure that there's sustainability, to ensure that there is resilience, to ensure that this can continue. Because if, like the commissioner rightly put it, if climate change is not addressed, if issues of production are not addressed, then they will in the long run affect these women. They will in the long run affect these mothers. These are our mothers. They are the majority of the people. They are the people that are looking after these families. They are the people that are helping shaping this country. So we must work together.
And there's some individuals grappling with unpaid care work.
Unpaid care work, which is a burden, and that was really highlighted and over brought out as a result of COVID. Now, when we don't address these issues, it will in the long run affect us. So it is very key for those women to understand that we recognize their efforts, that we recognize what they do as women, that we are here to work together with them, but also bring up measures that are going to help and support to make this world, Uganda, a better place. Yes.
When you talk about sustainability, measures put in place to ensure sustainable agricultural production, what exactly do you mean?
What I mean by these measures is we work together to ensure that they are given the necessary skill set of relevant technologies that can grapple with the current climate situations. Just like the commissioner rightly put it, that the climate has changed. It is not as it was before. Right now, it's not easy for you to plan how to plant or how to do agriculture because of the uncertainties in climate.
The planting season is the harvesting season, and the harvesting season is the planting season. They're too confused.
They are too confused.
I'm telling you.
So we must work with these women to give them sustainable measures of carrying out agriculture. Not only that, we also work with them to build up their women economic empowerment aspect of life.
I see.
Most of these women are poor people. Poverty is grappling with them. But then we are also having so many men today who are neglecting their duties. Most of them are leaving home and are going to look for work elsewhere, leaving these women to fend at home, leaving these women to be the ones to take care of their homes. So we must help them find measures of ensuring that they are able to sustain these homes.
And to rub salt into this wound, Angela, I mean, the woman is going to till the land, toil, without any help from the man. And at the end of the day, the man is going to come back home and sell the proceeds.
Yes,
all the produce.
It's another issue that women are grappling with. They are the ones who bear the burden of farming, but at the end of the day, it's the men who come and sell off, and they are responsible for distribution of how this money is spent, which I think is an unfair aspect. But again, research has also shown that when we economically empower these women, they are better positioned to take care of their homes. They are better positioned to plan for their homes. They are better positioned to align whatever plans they have to ensure that their families are sustained in the right way. So it is very key to ensure that we support these women in terms of climate resilience, in terms of economic empowerment. Yes.
Of course, when you talk about some of the mitigating measures, Angela, we're talking about irrigation. And you and I know how expensive irrigation is. So when you talk about helping these rural women and we're not giving them the machinery that they need to actually get into commercialized agriculture, are we just, singing a chorus and not coming up with the tangible solutions that we need for these rural women? Because it's more like a song. Last year we were talking about this, the year before that, and the year before that. Rural women are at the forefront of the agricultural production, but still resources are not reaching them. Irrigation resources are not reaching them. Is this a song, a chorus, if you will?
I wouldn't want to call it a song. I believe that is why we work with the government, to be able to come up with measures that can really help this woman. And also, that's why we get partners who can come and support us in this regard. Yes, irrigation is key, but this is an effort that cannot be done by us alone.
Indeed.
We work together with government. We work in terms of ensuring that policies are put in place that are practical, but also that support these women in that regard. The other issue is teaching these women sustainable measures of agriculture. If you look at women today, most of them are getting engaged in farming of produce, subsistence farming, but also produce that can bring in quick money. We are seeing so many people growing vegetables. We are seeing so many people involved in small commercial farming. That is, for me, I think it's a good thing because they are able to get some money that can help them sustain. So if we are not giving them the irrigation because it's expensive as of now, and the government is in the process of ensuring that they get to give them that kind of support. Let us give them other measures that can help them in that regard. Yes.
But do you feel like government has done enough, Angela, to help the rural women? Do you feel like what is coming in from government has been sufficient enough? Do you feel like there is goodwill to support the rural women?
More needs to be done.
More needs to be done.
More needs to be done.
And on that point, let's bring in a representative of the government, Angela Nakafero, the Commissioner, Gender and Women's Affairs in the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development. A very good afternoon once again, Angela. Let's talk about the help that you're according rural women. What are you doing as government to uplift the lives of the rural women?
Well, when you reflect on government plans,
Indeed.
the third National Development Plan,
Indeed.
the associated program implementation action plan, there's quite a lot going on.
Indeed.
You'll find out in almost all areas in Uganda, the road network has significantly improved. You'll also find out that the rural electrification, ladies and gentlemen, has significantly improved.
Yes, I know.
You'll also find out that even the renewable energy that my colleague Angela is talking about, solar energy, biogas, all those different sorts of appropriate energy have also improved. Of course, we look at government from a holistic approach. When you look at it's unfortunate that our schools are still closed during the COVID context, but the reach in terms of access to schools, access to health services, education services have also greatly improved.
How about access to farm inputs, access to irrigation resources, access to many of these agricultural tools that the women might have needed or still need during this COVID-19 pandemic, but access is too difficult?
Yeah, it's still a big challenge. It's a dilemma that even in this day of technology, we are still using the hand hoe. Really, we need to step up our efforts in terms of ensuring that our rural farmers, especially women, can access appropriate technology to enable them produce more, but also be able to conserve the environment. So those are some of the areas that are being tackled within agro-industrialization. And this is a very important program under the third National Development Plan.
Of course, it was captured under the third National Development Plan, but it was also captured in the second National Development Plan. And we had, anticipated that maybe at the end of NDP2, we would have moved to another whole and would have commercialized agriculture. But here we are. And I did, like I did mention to a call, Angela, is this more like a chorus, more like a song? We get back in the same position where we are from. NDP2 did not bring about commercialized agriculture. NDP3 is also catching the same. Are we not implementing these very good ideas? Is that a problem?
I think we need to take into account that development is a process.
Development is a process.
Yes, please. Today, if I can access agriculture input to help me produce more, it is a progress. Tomorrow, if I'm supported to harvest rainwater, such that I don't take a lot of time in terms of fetching water, I also feel that is another progress. So it all depends on the kind of context we are talking about. Of course, as government, we realize that we need to do more in terms of promoting national development in this country.
Indeed.
And especially in terms of promoting women's economic empowerment. It's an area where we really need to do more.
Do you believe one of the measures could be funding the agricultural sector more? Because you do have many of the experts, especially within government, who are saying agriculture is the backbone of this country. But when we look at the budget allocations, little money is going to agriculture. The biggest chunk is going to security. And we do know food security is the overall security within this country. So why are we seeing less prioritization of the agricultural sector?
Within, Mr. Moderator, within the third national development plan, agro-industrialization has been prioritized. But of course, the issues around resourcing, we also need to look at the prevailing context. We've been in COVID, government, businesses have been run down, and of course the income that is coming to government has also been affected. So the sectors, all sectors have been equally affected.
Indeed. But of course, government is not sitting idly on its hands. You've come up with measures to ensure that we alleviate the suffering of many of these individuals, especially those within the rural settings. And the parish development model was that magic silver bullet that was actually earmarked to actually bring about some, semblance of normalcy during this COVID-19 pandemic. But do you believe the parish development model is that magic bullet we've been waiting for in household?
Of course, the parish development model is building on other prevailing programs.
I see.
We have different pillars. We have pillars on improving productivity. We have pillars on community mobilization and mindset change. We have pillars around promoting infrastructure development. So all the different pillars in totality will at the end of the day contribute to better livelihoods within the rural areas. And of course, not forgetting other services. So it's important that as we discuss the parish development model and the associated programs, we also prioritize the special interest of the rural women. And I know there's an effort to do that.
Go ahead. Angela, go ahead.
Yes, please.
Go ahead. We're still waiting. We're still listening to your deliberations. Go ahead. On how you're actually uplifting the lives of rural women.
Today we are talking about,
within
the parish development model, Cabinet has already sounded itself in terms of ensuring that 30% of the resources, the financial resources that are being invested into the parish development models are going to target women in terms of producing and improving productivity. Within that parish development model, we are also prioritizing the aspect of having safe homes and safe communities. Without safety in the home, a woman cannot produce. So issues of gender-based violence are being targeted, but also issues around common user facilities. Facilities that will help women in production to be able to access appropriate technology, to be able to access skilling, to be able to improve their knowledge on agriculture, but also on other aspects that affect them, but also accessing other additional services like education and health. All those are very, very important.
You mentioned a very, very good factor, creating a conducive environment that will enable rural women to actually go out there and ensure that more food is produced on the farms. If a woman is being battered by her husband, how sure are we that the next day she will be going to the farm to till the land? No, she'll be grappling with those wounds. So a safe environment. Wow, we do have someone who has a lot of information on that. That is Akoth Angela. She is a lawyer. She is also the National Project Coordinator working with Action Aid International Uganda. The project itself is Gender-Based Violence Shelters Project. Tell me more about this.
Thank you very much, Moderator. The Gender-Based Violence Project is a project or a program that looks at supporting women who have faced or interfaced with gender-based violence.
I see.
It does not only support women, but it supports men too.
Thank you very much. You're going to talk about the men too. You're not neglected.
It supports men too, though women are more prone to gender-based violence due to the cultural norms, due to the gender factor of them being women.
Patriarchal society.
Under this program, we operate 9 shelters. across 9 districts.
Only 9 districts?
Yes. We have one in Kampala, that is in Bwaise. We have one in Nebi. We have one in Mubende. We have one in Katakwi. We have one in Amuru. We have one in Kumi. We have one in Palisa. We have one in Kwen, that is the Sebei region. And then we have one in, which one have I missed?
You don't really have to go far because you did mention the Sebei sub-region. These are individuals who are grappling with female genital mutilation.
Yes,
and these are also regions whereby women are not allowed to own land. So how is she going to till or produce more food if the men are owning most of that land? Go ahead and explain to us how this affects food production at the end of the day.
One of the issues, before I go to that, I just wanted to highlight the services that are provided.
We have time. Go ahead.
Yes. At these shelters, we have a psychosocial support officer, that's a counselor, and we have a lawyer, an advocate. The services that are offered at these shelters, we offer counseling because most of these survivors come grappling with issues that need to be addressed through being counseled. We give legal advice and pro bono services. All these are free of charge. We are able to accommodate survivors who are in their situations, but then remove them from unsafe spaces and integrate them into safer spaces. We are able to give medical support to survivors, those who come with wounds, those survivors of defilement, and they need any form of medical support. We are able to give them that support. We are able to link them to referral points. For example, we cannot offer all the support as members of the shelter, but the beauty about Uganda is we have different referral areas where we can link these survivors. We can take them to hospitals. We work with the probation officers. We work with the district community-based officers. We work with the RDCs. Depending on the situation at hand, we are able to link them to that necessary referral place.
Amazing work you're doing.
Now, one of the key things that is coming up in our work that is affecting women is the issue of land. People now are aware of the importance of land and the value of land, and of course our population is growing so fast. We are now 47 million. Approximately 47 million. So we are grappling for the same pieces of land.
Still at 43 million,
43?
but we are pushing forward 22 million men and some 23 million women. You're still pushing around 45 million. Go ahead.
Okay. Now, the issue that women are grappling with right now is a land violation of their land rights.
Yes.
Most of them are being denied access to land. Because of cultures. Most of them are grappling with a forceful denial of this land. And remember, they are the people who benefit from this land. They are the tillers of this land. They are the biggest percentage of the people that are behind the food production aspect. So we come in to support them in that regard. The good thing is we have lawyers. We have advocates. We are able to provide legal advice with these cases, but also provide them with court representation. And we've seen so many women supported positively, regaining their land, regaining access to this land, and it has gone a long way in ensuring their sustainability in the various areas. Yes. So the other issue that we've seen that women are grappling with is gender-based violence generally. Women come in and are violated because of the fact that they are women. Our culture norms tend to give men a superior status to women. Now these women come and get these various kinds of support, but in giving them that support, we are also able to give them the necessary advice in terms of how to live a positive life, how to live a sustainable life, but also link them to to people who can give them the necessary advice in terms of financial literacy. We are able to give them startup capital because we realize gender-based violence is hinged onto poverty. So when you give these women startup capital, we've seen it go a long way in empowering them. They are able to speak up. They are able to go and work out there for their children. They are able to actually ensure that they cater for their families in the right way. You realize that women play a very big role in ensuring that children go to school. They take a very big role in the education of, of their children.
Indeed.
They play a very big role in ensuring that there's food sustainability in our home. So when we empower them economically in that regard, it goes a long way in supporting them to ensure that they live a happy and free life, and also contributes to sustainable development.
Indeed. That is Akoth Angela. She is the National Project Coordinator and Gender-Based Violence Shelters Project. That is, she's working with Action Aid International Uganda. Let's also bring in Angela Nakafero, the Commissioner, Gender and Women's Issues under the Ministry of Gender and Socio-Development. Now, Angela Nakafero, let's talk about what government is doing to create an atmosphere that is favorable for the women to actually go ahead and ensure food security within our country. She did mention what Action Aid is doing, you know, on the sidelines. We'd like to know what government is doing in that regard. I did talk to some of the government officials before this conversation, before this conversation, and they were telling me we do not have any shelters, courtesy of government, that are being run by government. Is that true?
Well, that's not true.
Do we have official
Angela,
government
maybe
shelters?
Angela, my colleague, has not told you that we are running the shelters jointly with our development partners.
All right.
And government has really worked hard to ensure that we mobilize additional resources toward the shelters. And of course, when you look at the shelter services, as Angela has been emphasizing, all the structures that the shelters are taking advantage of, probation services, health facilities, the courts of law, the police, all those are services that are managed and paid for by the government of Uganda. So what's happening is complementing our different roles and responsibilities.
We also do know that Uganda here is very blessed. We have some 40 million acres of arable land. But guess what, Ms. Angela Nakafero, we are only tilling 20 million acres. What are we doing to ensure that more land is tilled in that regard? More access to the women, especially the rural women. She talked about some of the stumbling blocks, patriarchal society, some of the socio-cultural norms that are actually dampening the resolve of the women to go to the farms and actually ensure food production in this country. We do have laws that are negating these practices from taking center stage, but they are largely still in existence. You as a government, what are you doing to step up your efforts?
I also need to make it very clear that land is an issue. And of course, in our socio-cultural practices, land, most of the land in Uganda is under private ownership. Either under Mairo, for instance, in Buganda, or under communal setup. For instance, customary land in northern Uganda, West Nile, Karamoja, and so on.
I see.
So you find that, yes, land is an issue. Government of Uganda has come up with conducive laws. And because of those conducive laws, ladies and gentlemen, we've managed to shift the norms in terms of land ownership. Previously, in the 1990s, only 7% of women were owning land. As we speak today, 37% of women are able to own a piece of land where they can produce in their own right as farmers. So much as still the gap is still there. 37 compared to 63. Of course, we also celebrate that change. It's going to take a lot of time, and especially in terms of shifting our norms. If only our fathers can learn that as I'm giving out land, my daughters are also equal beneficiaries of this land. That would make a lot of difference. And then secondly, also mobilizing women to buy land in their own right as women. The practice has been that we buy land and put it under our brothers' names, under our sons' names, or under our husbands' names. But time has come that land is an asset to women. You can use it to access a loan. You can use it to construct a home. So you need land in your own right.
But they do not have the money or the purchasing power to get this land. That is the major problem.
37% increase, ladies and gentlemen, is basically because women have gone out to buy land in their own right as women.
Ms. Nakafero, can we as a government buy this land and maybe distribute it to these women so that they could go ahead with their agricultural
That is
production?
a brilliant proposal. if government can, and I saw in the media, it's a proposal that is being discussed.
Indeed.
It will be very important that government contributes in terms of promoting women's ownership of land. But when we look at other government programs like resettlement programs that are going on where large-scale developments are taking place,
Indeed.
the issue of co-ownership of land and ensuring that the rights of women and girls are taken into account has been very critical. Because these days, government no longer compensates the man alone, government is compensating the family. And even in terms of resettlement, the rights of the family members have been taken into account.
All right, we are talking about the International Rural Women's Day. It's not being observed today. It will be observed on Friday. We are simply talking about the issues so that you could know what you should anticipate as far as activities that have been earmarked courtesy of government and our development partners like Action Aid International. On Friday, we shall be in Kayunga, highlighting the critical role of rural women they are playing in enhancing food production and also ensuring food security in that regard. It shall be observed under the theme that is food security amidst climate change, building resilience for rural women. But then the men who are watching are like, well, it was International Women's Day in March. It was the International Day for the Girl Child 2 days ago, October 11th. What about the men? They're wondering. Angela Nakafero, what about the men?
Very interesting discussion. Of course, Mr. Moderator, when we talk about gender equality and women's empowerment, we tend to prioritize women, but we are not leaving men out of our discussion. Today we are talking about male engagement in all these kind of discussions and programs, mainly because we would like to see more women and more men and boys that are supportive to the agenda.
Indeed.
But I also need to emphasize that when I reflect on our development indicators, ladies and gentlemen, over 200 plus indicators, we've only managed to achieve 3 in favor of women. And that is basically enrollment in primary education, life expectancy, and women in leadership positions at the national level. So the rest of 200 plus indicators, we are not yet there. So men don't need to be worried. They're still controlling.
You and I know very well that if we are to uplift the lives of the rural women alike, we need the men, the input of the men. But how so? How do we involve the men in helping uplift the lives of the rural women to boost agriculture?
Thank you. Having realized that the men are a key stake in boosting these women, but working with these women to ensure that they are uplifted. We have worked together with them and incorporated them in our programs. When we are doing sensitizations, we ensure that we bring men on board, because it does not help to sensitize a woman about rights and not sensitize the man himself. We have worked to ensure that male change agents, those who are former perpetrators of gender-based violence, who have now reformed, come on board and are able to go out there, support these women. We train them in the necessary laws, but also build their capacities on how to support these women. And we've seen it go a long way in helping us. In terms of...
Has it gone a long way?
It does. It does. It has also helped us actually be able to get these men to come out and speak about their issues. Because they'll break the norms. Yes. Because men would find it difficult to come, for example, to our shelters and report incidences. But because we have these male change agents out there supporting, the men can easily relate with them and can easily talk to them. And with that, we are able to break the ice or the silence.
When you talk to these men, what are some of the reasons they give you as to why they refuse to accord land to the women?
Most of it is hinged onto culture norms. cultural norms. So it needs sensitization.
So the cultural leaders have to also be brought on board.
It is an aspect that we have embraced strongly.
I see.
Of course, the dynamics of different areas differ. Areas where we have cultural leaders who are strong, where they are respected, like in the North and in the West Nile, we are really bringing them on board and training them on feminist leadership, but also on training them on how to approach such issues, putting gender sensitivity in it. And we've seen it go along where we've seen, for example, for the Alur Kingdom, we've seen them make pronouncements against some of their cultural norms that are now not applicable and have been seen to infringe the rights of women and girls. And so it has been a very good success.
So besides the pronouncements by these cultural leaders, are they inducting women in their administrative structures to ensure that they give power to the women, not just make pronouncements, but give them power? A female leader within our society would go a long way in actually painting a better image of the women in society, instead of saying, no, let the women own land, let the women do this and that. Are they inducting women in these administrative structures of their cultural leaderships?
I have seen, yes, I've seen them inducting women in some of their structures. For the Alur Kingdom, I've seen at least more women now. Their communications people, some of there are few, but at least it's a work in progress. By the mere fact that they've been able to bring them on board, for us is a win-win. And we believe with more engagements and more sensitizations, we shall go a long way in changing these cultural practices. But also for the cultural leaders, we try to bring them on board for them to get a feel of the kind of work that we do. When we bring these women to some of their, they tend to take us to some of their conferences as the cultural leaders, and we are able to let these women relay their stories so that they get a feel of what they go through. And in this regard, we are able to work together to see that some of these norms change, but also train these people and change their mindset. Mindset changing is very key, but it takes time.
And indeed, of course, Angela, by inducting women in the traditional leadership structures, it would go a long way in empowering these women. If you go to kingdoms like the Toro Kingdom, a woman is not allowed to actually take up any position in that jurisdiction. So we should start there. But Angela, what are you doing to ensure that you bring these cultural leaders on board?
Well,
because Toro Kingdom, I just mentioned, they don't allow you as a woman.
We have a committee of cultural and traditional leaders, COTLA, that was launched 1 year back. And the intention of this committee is to bring all the different leaders of culture and traditional institutions to work with government in terms of positive norm change. Because they really play a very critical role in it. Through their pronouncements, they're able to change quite a lot in terms of our social norms. We've seen it in Karamoja, we've seen it in Buganda. The Kabaka has been very prominently pronouncing his positions on some of these contentious issues. We are seeing it among the Langis, but also among the rule, as Angela is emphasizing. So we intend to utilize culture for transformative change in future than before. And against that background, we are also talking about positive masculinity. Can we use the power,
not the toxic part,
the power that you men have to promote gender equality and women's empowerment?
Nation Media Group doesn't sleep in that sphere, and we've actually been working so hard to ensure that we actually get gender equality for the women. I'm telling you, we are losing sleep because of that. We are not sleeping. But then let's talk about the role of the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development. We've talked about the role of government overall, but we want to know what is going to be your role as the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development when it comes to uplifting the lives of rural women to ensure food security and more food production.
The Ministry of Gender, Labour, Social Development is the national machinery for gender equality and women's empowerment in Uganda. And of course, our work really lies in terms of promoting the entirety of government to come up with positive laws and policies. And that work we've done very well. As a country, we celebrate so many pieces of laws and policies that are really progressive in terms of gender equality and women's empowerment. We are also implementing special programs
All right.
Under my docket, we are implementing a special program on elimination of gender-based violence. We're implementing a special program on women economic empowerment, especially the Uganda Women Entrepreneurship Program,
All right.
where women are given soft loans so that they can advance their businesses. We are also doing a lot in terms of community mobilization and mindset change.
Indeed.
That is a new program that we are leading government, the entire government ministries and agencies.
A program that should involve Nation Media Group. We want to be behind that, help
Media
you shine a light
critical.
on the critical role of rural women when it comes to food production and so forth.
We are also in charge of programs around social protection.
Yes, Angela.
Protection of our children, protection of vulnerable groups, cultural minorities. The ministry is also supporting the older persons. We are supporting people with disability. We are promoting women in leadership, building on the work of the National Women Council, Youth Council, people with disability, older persons. So as a ministry, really, we are at the forefront of promoting gender equality and women's empowerment.
All right, that is.
And of course,
right.
we can do better in terms of our programs.
Indeed.
And we are committed to ensure that as we design our programs, we are taking into account the vision 2040. We are also taking into account
All
the
right.
third national development.
Well, of course, Nation Media Group also has the People's Parliament, a strong tool that we could take to these rural areas so that we can interface with these rural women so that they could tell us what exactly are their challenges and what help do they need. It's better that we talk to them so that they tell us what kind of measures they need to be put in place. All right. Let's also talk about the role of civil society with Koth Angela. What kind of role are you going to be playing in alleviating the challenges that rural women are grappling with in light of climate change, COVID-19, and all these hurdles we've been talking about right here on the show? What kind of role will you be playing on other development partners?
Thank you very much. One of the key roles that we are playing in that regard is the fact that we are training these women. We are training them and equipping them with relevant skills in terms of sustainable farming.
Indeed.
We are training them in terms of running businesses. If they are running small-scale businesses, how should they run them? What would be the ideal way to do it? We are training them in terms of saving. Having to come up with saving groups that support themselves as women.
In case of a calamity.
Not even a
Shocks
calamity.
and vulnerabilities.
Like it would be ideal to have these groups support groups that you can benefit from in terms of finances.
I see.
We are giving them startup kits. Like I told you, we realize and believe that gender-based violence is linked to poverty.
Indeed.
So if we can support these women with startup capital for any form of business that they can do, however small it is, it goes a long way in helping them change their lives. On top of that, we are supporting them with giving them legal knowledge. Like I said,
What are their rights? Indeed. They should know.
They should know. Knowledge is power. So that they know what to do in case they're interfaced with any form of violation, where to go, but also how to go about it. Yes, so we are giving them legal knowledge, but also we are helping them by representing them in courts of law. Most of them are poor women, and they cannot go through this process by themselves.
Can we also let them know that they can own land through a certificate of customary ownership, a CCO?
Yes.
We are doing robust sensitization. Actually, this is the Land Awareness Week, and we have a group that is designated in different areas around the country, and where they are having legal aid clinics for land matters, where they are doing robust sensitization, but also registering cases so that we follow up these cases. So yes, we are doing a lot of sensitization. It is very key to understand why you need a certificate of registration. It is very key to understand why it is important when you're going to die to have a will and be able to bequeath this property to your child or to a woman. But also it is very key to for women to know that it is okay to own land. We see so many women, even here in the urban areas, whereby they have spouses and buy land and only sign against this land as witnesses, and yet they've contributed money to this land. So that is an aspect of ignorance that we need to take out of these women by sharing knowledge, the right knowledge with them.
Koth Angela, she is the National Project Coordinator, that is Gender-Based Violence Shelters Projects under Action Aid International Uganda. We are talking about, well, yes, International Rural Women's Day shall be observed, that is on Friday this week, October 15th. It was first observed, that is 13 years ago, on October 15th, that is 2008. The national theme on Friday this week shall be, well, food security amidst climate change, building resilience for rural women. Yes, we are largely dependent on rain. Our agriculture here in Uganda, 90% is largely dependent on rain. So what happens when it doesn't rain? Does it mean we won't be producing any food? That's why we are here. That's why it is critical to highlight those individuals who go out of their way to ensure that they circumvent all those challenges that they go through on a daily basis to ensure that there is food on the table. What role are you going to play? What role shall government play? What role shall civil society actors play in that regard? What role shall you as men play in actually helping us alleviate this challenge? Let's talk about the activities we should anticipate on Friday. Angela Nakafero, what kind of activities are earmarked on Friday?
We are having a panel discussion on Friday that is going to usher into the national celebration.
All right.
And we've stepped up our efforts in terms of engaging the media. This is basically why we are here. But we are also having an exhibition for rural women where they are going to showcase their products and how they are conserving the environment, how they are taking measures in terms of improving food productivity and conservation of the climate. And of course, we'll also have an engagement with young people, because we need a generation that is aware of the implementation of the destruction that we cause on the climate.
All right, that is Angela Nakafero. She is the Commissioner, Gender and Women's Affairs under the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development. We also did interact with Koth Angela. She's a lawyer. She's also the National Project Coordinator for Gender-Based Violence Shelters Project under the International, that is Action Aid International Uganda. Please remember, our agriculture is largely dependent on rain, and we need to help those individuals who go out of their way to circumvent all those challenges to ensure that there's food on the table. The rural women, that is 76% of those women who are largely engaged in agriculture. For the men, it's only 62%. But we also need you on board in that regard. Have yourselves a blessed day.
Thank you.